Coming up on today's episode of PSN 2025 is chock full of parasport games, competitions, and tournaments. We're going to highlight our biggest ones on our calendar with special guest Jennie Bovard. Stick around.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. As always, I am Alex Smyth, the host of the program, alongside my co-host Nathan Clement. Nathan, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing great, Alex. It's a beautiful day out here in Vancouver, so how's it going for you?
It's a relatively cold one in Ontario, but it is January, so you expect it. And speaking of cold, we are going to be talking a bit about some winter competitions, some new introductions into the world of winter parasport. We're going to bring on Jennie Bovard to dissect some upcoming competitions. I'm really excited about that. But before we get to that, you want to highlight some competitions and tournaments, a bit more of the short term, so take it away with the PSN update.
Now, the PSN update.
The 2025 Parasports calendar kicks off this week as Canada's Paralympian skiers head to Winter Park, Colorado for the Winter Park Open. This week's of racing provides a fantastic opportunity for Canada's developmental team to catch the attention of the senior squads in the penultimate year before Milano. From the snowy slopes of Colorado to the sunny course of Australia, wheelchair tennis's brightest stars are preparing for the first Grand Slam of the year as the Australian Open begins later this month. In Melbourne, the Victoria Open serves up the first tune-up for Rob Shaw and his doubles partner Heath Davidson. Check back later this week to see how Canada performed on slopes and courts.
Well, Nathan, you've teed up the things that are coming in the short view for the calendar, but why don't we take a look at what the rest of 2025 has to offer in the world of parasport? For that, let's welcome in our friend of the show, Jennie Bovard, to help us break down the top events we have on our calendars. Jennie, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today.
Absolutely my pleasure.
So obviously we want to do a bit of a look ahead for 2025. There is a whole slate of parasport events, competitions, tournaments that are going to be taking place. What's one that you have your eyes on that's piqued your interest and caught your attention?
Well, you can't have me here and not have me speak about goalball. So I'm certainly going to start with goalball, and on my radar, very honed in my radar, if I might say, is the Montreal Goalball Invitation Tournament. It takes place later this month in January, Friday the 24th to Sunday the 26th, and it's hosted by the Association Sportive des Aveugles du Québec. So that's the Quebec Blind Sports Association. And it is the 23rd edition of this invitational tournament. And what's kind of wild about that is I think I've been in about half of those competitions myself, which is really cool. This year, there will be 18 teams from across Canada, the United States, and on the women's side, we'll have Mexico joining us. So I'm really excited to compete in this event, and then I get to witness, obviously, all of the live action there myself as well. It's such an elite, high-level competition that sometimes I don't know what I'm doing there, but it is such a great learning experience too.
Well, and it's fantastic too, because as you said, like you literally have been to like half of these annual competitions that they put on. I'm sure it's just like seeing that growth and development of this competition, like from being one that was probably a relatively regional one, that you're getting these international teams coming and competing at. That's got to be huge just for the sport itself, for the kind of the exposure that the teams, like athletes like yourself, are being able to go up against other international teams. That's got to be huge.
The more opportunities that we can have to compete and showcase our sport and grow ourselves as athletes, but of course to grow the sport and just increase those opportunities all over the world and in Canada, that's really what it's all about. And this tournament does a really great job at that. They've been doing it for years. Myself, I don't compete internationally per se, but I get to compete against and learn from other athletes who do. Paralympians, people going to the Parapan-Ams. And it's at this tournament that I've been able to compete against, obviously, people on the Canadian national team. It's really great. Pretty well each team who's representing Canada has someone who's either in the Canadian national team pool or they're on the national team and have recently competed representing Canada. But also in the past, Japan has been there, and I've been able to compete against athletes from Japan and learn their strategies and how they play. They do something completely different that we had never experienced before, where they all play on the center line, which is not traditionally how you do it. So you get exposed to a lot of different people and a lot of different techniques, and it's really, like I said, all about the more opportunities, the better. I find in the United States there are a lot more regional comps. So this one really, like 18 teams. 8 women's teams. That's huge to be able to attract that many athletes to Montreal.
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan, what's the first one on your list that you're keeping close attention to this year?
I really think for me, being in Vancouver, we have our first major multi-sport games happening since the Vancouver 2010 Olympics and Paralympics, and that's going to be the Invictus Games, as this is the first winter games for Invictus coming to Vancouver and Whistler. So I'm really excited just for the opportunity of so many athletes from around the world getting the chance to see the great sights and compete in front of some great crowds here in Vancouver. It's a great slate with sports like sitting volleyball, luge, bobsled, and so much more just happening in Vancouver in February from the 8th to the 16th.
Is it one of those things that, like, is Vancouver the best, like, host city when it comes to trying to introduce or expose folks to like a winter sport competition like this? Because, like, obviously Vancouver has a lot of resources there. They have all the arenas, the venues in close proximity. It's still a major hub. I feel like Vancouver is kind of like the best place to be. Maybe Calgary, but a lot of their venues have kind of aged out of kind of being a top-notch, like qualification or competition level venue. So Nathan, you're there. Is Vancouver still the place to be, especially when it comes to winter sports in Canada?
I really think it is. Vancouver as a city just has that backdrop with so much culture, so much food, so much activity that you can do outside of the sporting competitions. But inside sport, we have some great facilities left over in the Vancouver 2010 legacy, but just throughout our history as one of the major sporting hubs in the country for years and years. We also have Whistler, which has really just grown into an absolute mega sports scene, whether it's for luge, bobsled, or even with the skiing. Whistler is one of the great spots, one of the great resorts in the world for skiing. So it's just having these kind of giant playgrounds in such a beautiful part of the country as something so special and can help hold so much for sport and so many activities. So it's a really, really great spot. And I feel like Vancouver and even Calgary is another great location. But as you said, Calgary is a bit outdated with some of their gear, but also Vancouver could having opportunities like this just allows sport to continue to grow and just more opportunities to come.
Jennie, what do you think of the Invictus Games? Are you excited the fact that this is going to be the first time there's a winter competition for the Invictus Games and it's hosted here in Vancouver?
I think that's beyond exciting. I am a big time fan of watching and taking in winter sports. I'm not a big participant, but it's all about creating these chances for people to get out and compete and to try these sports in these venues that we might not otherwise have access to. I think that is such a huge deal, and we might not get it perfect the first time. I think that's something that not a lot of people perhaps outside of the competition sphere can acknowledge, is that like sometimes organizing these things is such a huge undertaking. So kudos to anyone organizing these events and in charge of making sure that they go smoothly, because I've been on that side of things too. So I think it'll be great to see, what learnings come out of it too. What can we learn? And my goodness, the more opportunities, the better. I think that's the main theme here is creating all these chances for people to get out and compete. And it's representation too. When you see other people who you see yourself in, I could probably have articulated that better, but when you see yourself out there competing in one way or another, if you identify with anything that's going on out there, for me anyway, it always gives me a twinge of like, ooh, I want to try that, especially something like luge. Can we go really fast? Because that's my thing. So I think it gets other people excited about it too, who had maybe never considered participating or being a spectator even.
Alex, is there any sporting events you're looking forward to in 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to keep on the through line of these major cross-sport competitions. We started in Montreal, we went to Vancouver. Let's go all the way to the other coast, St. John's, Newfoundland this summer, the Canada Summer Games. What really has me excited about this competition is the fact that not only is this a wide-ranging competition with multiple different sports, multiple different disciplines, this is a blended competition for amateur athletes. So no one who is on a national level, on a national team, who's appeared in the Olympics or Paralympics competes at the Canada Summer Games. This is for people who are up and coming. It's that next wave, those developmental athletes. It's a great national level competition for them to get exposure, get experience, and maybe catch some attention from national level coaches or scouts. What's also interesting, you got the para side and the able-bodied side competing concurrently. There's not a ton of para sports here, but you still have para athletics, you got cycling, and you got swimming having para categories for allowing people to compete. And it's also in the past has been a great proving ground for some future Paralympians. Think Katrina Roxon, think Stephanie Dixon. They've competed at the Canada Games in the past, so that has my interest. What do you guys make of that?
Well, first of all, I didn't know that was happening so close to home. So that's actually really exciting to get informed about that. I didn't realize that, again, that it was so close to home. So I really look forward to hearing the results and seeing possibly local talent. I think I know a couple of local athletes that might be competing, and so that's always just exciting to see.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have local crowds being able to see these athletes and people with disabilities as this is the first step in really your athletic journey, is getting to go to a Canada Games. I have friends, I have teammates that represented in swimming back in like 2013, 2017, 2009 Canada Games. And that really became that first opportunity for them to really understand what a multi-sport games is like, being in an environment where you have these tight communities and these tight crowds with other athletes who are in that same boat as you, really trying to prove themselves, take that next step and really just try to have fun and take in this experience. So for a lot of athletes, having swimming and also cycling, adding this category in adding para in the handbike category is going to be just crucial and massive for that development, because the big thing that we really have to utilize as in parasport development is that grassroots. And anytime you can have competitions outside of the international, national championships, it is huge for this sport growth, because Alex, you and I talk about it all the time. Development, that's our future, and that's how we're really going to grow and expand in sports. So any chance and any opportunity we have to get more race opportunities, help athletes get that chance to learn, grow, and just expand, and also make friends and also make that community too, because that is so important at the end of the day. It's that sense of community and just coming together as a whole. And the Canada Games does an amazing job of doing that.
Now, it almost feels like it's handmade for you, Nathan. You got paracycling, you got paraswimming competition. Did you ever compete at the Canada Games, or was your kind of trajectory just too quick that it didn't align when they were coming around?
I actually didn't get selected for the Canada Games team, so I missed out on it. Someone else was taking over me for the squad. So for myself, going into 2013, my goal and target was to actually qualify for the Canada Games. But due to selections and due to some classification, I got moved up a class, which prevented me from being selected. So I spent that summer, that year, being that athlete that used not being selected to the Canada Games as the fuel just to keep trying to never go through an experience of not being selected again.
Well, there you go. And the results have certainly spoken for themselves. Jennie, what's the second competition that's on your list?
Something that I have wanted to do for a very long time that I've only heard good things about. It's a total bucket list item. I'm really building it up. It's the Ottawa Race Weekend. And this is an event that's for everybody. Anybody can register in this event. And we probably know all across Canada, all across the world, there are road races going on all the time, all year round, right? Primarily from spring to autumn here in Canada, weather permitting. But the Ottawa Race Weekend, that takes place Saturday and Sunday, May 24th and 25th. I'm hoping to get there this year. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's really something that I would like to get to because the organizers of this race are really committed to removing barriers for participants with disabilities. And it's not to say that other road races, ones that I compete in regularly, the Blue Nose Marathon, the Legs for Literacy races in Moncton, New Brunswick, there are plenty of such examples all across the country who are welcoming to participants with disabilities who use wheelchairs or who might run with a guide or might require other assistance on the course. They're welcoming, but the Ottawa Race Weekend really sort of sets itself apart by providing a lot of information up front on their website. They make it known that we are welcome and they provide really helpful information. So not only that, they provide like terrain info on how you can connect to Achilles, which is a really great organization providing sighted guides for road races. Again, with all of these, you can run, you can walk. There's a bunch of different distances, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. And like I said, not only do they provide you with a ton of information to set you up to get you prepared for the day, but they also have something that's really unique that I have not seen in any other road race in Canada. And that is that they actually have categories for athletes with disabilities. And that's really cool to me because normally in these types of road races, I would be in a category of female, 30 to 39 age group. And so I'm competing as a visually impaired runner against really myself. But when it comes down to placing and maybe winning prizes and things like that and looking at your results, it's really unique that at Ottawa Race Weekend, you have a visually impaired and blind category and you have other disability categories, which is just amazing because at the end of the day, yes, you're competing against yourself, but to see yourself near the top of a category in the results or to have the ability to compete on a more sort of level playing field, not only against yourself, that's really what I'm in it for. I keep saying that, but it's really the truth. It's such a unique thing to see. And I think it really, again, gives the little push to welcome athletes who are blind and visually impaired or who might use a wheelchair on race day.
Jennie, thank you for bringing these ones forward. I mean, their list goes on and on. Unfortunately, we don't have all the time to be able to dissect every single competition going up. But if you had to summarize, your outlook for the Parasport calendar for 2025, what would it be? I know I'm putting you on a spot here. It's going to be tough, but how would you describe it?
My opinion is I'm so pumped. I'm so excited to see the growth of Parasport. You're seeing it everywhere. Invictus, you're seeing it with goalball, with the 18 teams in Montreal. But not only that, but things like blind hockey are just exploding, and the competitions, the opportunities to compete are growing and adding every year, and the exposure is growing every year as well. So that's why it's so awesome to be here talking with the both of you, and that the both of you are always, sharing all of this important information to get us pumped up and to get us involved, whether it's participating or spectating or doing whatever we can to grow parasport. It's the referees, it's the organizers, it's everybody. And so the more exposure, the more competition, it's just very, very, very exciting. And the youth too. I'm seeing a lot of younger folks get involved with parasport, with goalball, with skiing. And that is so encouraging because that wasn't my experience growing up. So, and like you said, the development is key, and long-term athletic development, especially for the blind and visually impaired community, is the younger we start, the better.
Jennie, thank you so much for this.
Of course, my pleasure.
Well, that was friend of the show, Jennie Bovard, joining us, and we broke down a real diverse range of parasport competitions, Nathan. It just goes to show just the variety of competitions that take place throughout the entire year and across the country. We literally went coast to coast during that breakdown.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible what's going on around the country. And it's very special as we're talking about major national competitions, multi-sport games, but also regional stuff from events in Ottawa to other parts of the country too. And there's so many other events that we weren't able to share that we're going to have to bring up in future episodes, but it really shows there's so much happening right now. There's so many opportunities on all levels of parasport. So it's going to be a really exciting year, I think, especially as we get 1 year out of Milano Cortina for the 2026 Winter Paralympic Games.
Absolutely. The countdown is on for the Winter Paralympics, but I also want to take an opportunity. We talked about the major competitions, looking ahead for 2025. That includes both the winter competitions and the summer ones. You yourself, you are a summer sport athlete, swimming and cycling. This is a bit of kind of a downtime. Obviously, we're in the middle of winter. So for yourself, as you start to look ahead and prepare for your next calendar year of 2025's competition cycle, what is the progression and the ramp up period and the training period that you go through to make sure you're prepared for your season this year?
There's a lot, and especially this year, it's a little more of a shorter timeline than what I've usually have in the past, where usually a lot of my calendars start in early mid-September. But because of the Paralympic Games and World Championships being so late, but also just the strain and strenuous toll that an end of a quad takes on a body, I didn't really start training till late November, early December. So for me right now, I'm very much in the months of December, January, and February in a fitness block where I'm really doing longer rides of 2-3 hours, just building my fitness back up to where it would be, say, closer to the summer or the summer months. And then as I get closer and closer, about 2 months out of a competition, is really working on different aspects of efforts or high performance. So for myself as a time trial athlete, my efforts are going to be going from about 20 minutes to 35, 40 minutes in a race scenario. So I'm really working on interval work of 4 or 5 minutes, really being able to hold a pace, being able to hold a tempo for a short little period, rest and recover. So I'm able to hit it again and build that kind of stamina throughout. So when that time comes in May or later on into the year, I have that stability and I have that strength where I can just sit at a high percentage of what we use in cycling as what we call watts, or our power that is generated from the bike. So really trying to make sure I can hold a high power of wattage, but that's even the case for swimmers as well and other athletes too, where usually the first couple months are just about building back your fitness, building back your technique, and really building from there. And especially in a high technical sport like swimming, you're really fine tuning that technique. You're playing with what works, but also trying to build on what isn't working right now, where you can really grow and develop. But even with cycling too and swimming, when you get closer and closer to your competition or to your race or to the event that you're doing, nothing's going to magically change with your fitness levels. So you really start to zero in once again on your technique, your fine skills, and making sure everything's dialed in, everything's smooth and ready to go. And that's going to be a feeling of so many athletes on the winter side too, right now, as they're in the midst of competitions where if you're going out for hard training sessions again and again and again, you're really going to end up hurting yourself. And that's something that even for me too on the summer side is you really got to make sure you're not burning yourself out as you get closer and closer to races and competitions.
Now, for yourself, obviously, when you were a swimmer, it's relatively easy to go find a large enough pool. They're usually going to be indoor. They're going to be protected from the elements. As a cyclist, and I know Vancouver is different. You can be outdoors all year round. Does it make sense in the heart of winter to be training outdoors, or can you replicate the kind of endurance, the strain of training indoors on a stationary bike for you?
I'm in a very lucky and privileged position where, as you said, Vancouver has more favorable weather compared to other parts of Canada. And especially with a lot of my teammates right now, I know they've been on the trainer for months and months and months already, and they just want to get off. They want to get outdoors. They want to get in that fresh air. But for myself, I try to really balance it. And especially right now with me just getting back into training again and really building my fitness up, I'm really trying to use the trainer as a great tool for me. As in the past, I've hidden from the trainer just because I've had issues with different softwares being able to read and identify my affected side, which made it very, very difficult to get workouts done. So right now it is about really balancing my trainer time, but also using that experience to get outside, where if it's a torrential downpour, I'm probably not going to be riding and training outside, and rather I'll be staying inside. And often when you're on the stationary bike, it's a lot harder than what it would be outdoors. So it's a great way, especially when you have some sort of interval or what we call effort workouts. It's better to be on the trainer just so you can really try to get to that next level of exertion, just because it's a little more difficult, it's a little more challenging. So there's a lot of tools that you can take from the trainer. But if I could be outside every single day of the week, I would do that 110% of the time. I'm very lucky living in Vancouver. Like even right now, today's my off day off the bike, but it's a beautiful sunny day and I'm just itching to get on the bike, even though today is my day off the bike. So it's one of those things, when the good weather comes, you want to make the most out of it, but it's finding that balance because both sides really work and both sides can really, really benefit you.
For yourself, I know you're, as you mentioned, like coming off the quad with the World Championships and the Paralympics, kind of changing the cycle and schedule of competition. When do you foresee yourself like peaking in this year? Is there a certain kind of stretch of months that you're looking to, okay, for World Championships or certain competitions, I'm going to be kind of peaking this year? Or are you looking longer term that it's not necessarily within this year, you're just kind of building up gradually and it's next year or the year later that you want to be at peak form? When is that for you?
As every athlete, you want to be on that upwards trajectory every single year. And if it was a straight line going up, every athlete would go that way. But for me, really, sport and your own personal development is peaks and valleys. So I'm really targeting in May. It's my first of two peaks for our World Cup events that I don't know where they're going to be located yet. I find out in the coming weeks where that's going to be. So really targeting having good performances there just to build that solid momentum, build that confidence going into the summer and going into our World Championships, which are going to be in late August, which is going to be the major peak of the year. But really throughout the calendar, you're always trying to just build skills. You're trying to build on what's working for you, but also where you can really develop and grow as an athlete. So every time, whether it's fitness, whether it's speed, whether it's technique, there's so many things that you can really acquire. There's like little aspects that you continually establish and continually develop throughout the year. So, but overall, you have your major competitions that you're really peaking for, and especially in the parasport calendar, when we only have a handful of events throughout the year, it becomes even more crucial to really peak and expand and really reach your best for those events.
Well, needless to say, peaking is important. Just like we've reached the pinnacle of today's episode, it is the end. Unfortunately, the road stops here, but be sure to tune in next time. We'll have plenty more to talk about from the parasports world. I'm Alex Smyth, and that's Nathan Clement. Catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.